Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Jesus loves you. So, how do you know you're in a cult? Well, if you're worshiping man and they got you worshiping a man, then you're in a cult. Every cult involves some kind of human being or beings, right, that they venerate, honor, and worship. Now, worship is a very tricky word. People get tripped up on that word because they can easily justify so many things by saying, oh, I don't quote unquote worship them. Okay, so let's throw that word out the window for right now. Veneration, okay? If you're following a human being to a degree that you should not be, okay? Bible said, Jesus said, call no man your father, call no man teacher, okay? That doesn't mean we don't have a father with teachers. We do. But he's talking about how much credit are you giving these people, right? You have one father, one teacher, that's God in heaven, and Jesus Christ the Son. Okay, that's kind of the main point he's making. Look to God, look to Jesus. Everybody else is going to fail you. Do not put your faith in them. Okay, a cult is a group that puts their faith in some sort of man leader or woman. Okay, it's a person, it's a human being who usually heads up the cult, or it's been passed on to them, etc. Okay, you guys are getting a good view of the sky. I hope you don't mind. Okay, that's the deal. Okay, whether it's Ellen White and the Seventh-day Adventist movement, which I used to be in. I used to follow Ellen White. I wouldn't have said I worshipped her, but I sure did follow her above and beyond the Bible, right? Because her interpretation of the Bible was the only right one. So I wasn't following Jesus fully and solely. I was following Ellen White. Similarly, when I was in another cult, the Hare Krishnas, which is even more of a cult, I was following their guru. His name was Prabhupada. And he was my life and soul, and I loved him. Okay? And I was following this man. Straight to hell. Yes. And what do you know? When you're in a cult, you will have negative experiences that should be red flags. But if you're really inundated, you will ignore those red flags until finally you wake up. Which I pray happens to all cult members. But a lot of people do wake up and they come out of these cults, right? Some of them have to be deprogrammed. That's usually a process, right? Now, there are groups that go in and get cult members and deprogram them. But what I'm saying is you just have to do your own personal deprogramming when you come out of the cult, when you have to unlearn the things that they taught you. Now, this stuff is real dangerous because this stuff lingers. I am a former Hare Krishna. I got out 4 years ago. Or coming up on 5, actually, because it was 2020, right? Actually, no, that would be 4 years. So, but I still have a lot of the thinking of the Hare Krishna movement, right? So it's hard to shed all these doctrines, and sometimes it's still lingering in the back, right? Now, people say, oh, people join cults for, let's get this white picket fence view. This reminds me of the movie Blue Velvet. She wore blue velvet, bum bum, bluer than satin was her eyes. And the other song from that movie was In Dreams by Roy Orbison. A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night, just to sprinkle stardust, and he whispers, go to sleep, everything is alright. I close my eyes and drift away. In dreams I walk with you. In dreams I talk to you. Hopefully you guys don't mind my voice. In dreams you're mine all the time with you. In dreams, in dreams. Anyway, good song. Sorry for that little tangent. Hopefully you guys don't mind. Yeah, so I've been Christian and out of Hare Krishna for 5 years rather, because it is 2025. I forgot what day it was. So that's the deal, guys. So people say, oh, people join cults to be part of a family because they were abused and they want to have a family that they never had. Is that true? Yeah, I think it's true. I think there's something to that. childhood trauma, when you go through it and you join a cult, you replay your childhood trauma, and guess what? All three people are there. The perpetrator, the rescuer, and the victim. These three, this triangle of trauma, plays out continually in your life, in your workplace, in your relationships, in your romantic, intimate relations, in your friendships. If you're in a band, that'll play out, right? And definitely when you're in the cult, it plays out. And so you have that exactly. You have the perpetrator, which is usually the cult leader, who's doing some nefarious, bad stuff to the people, right? And you have a bunch of people who are the enablers. They don't see it. They don't hear about it. They're not being victimized necessarily, but they hear the stories from the people who are the victims, because that's the third person. There's a bunch of victims down there who are being victimized by this perpetrator. And then the enabler, or the rescuer, will rescue the perpetrator. Oh, no, he's holy. He would never do that. Right? It's this pathetic, disgusting, horrible, traumatic triangle we find ourselves in. And I'm not judging people because I've been there. But it's very sad. And I wish people would get out of it and realize, it's time to get out of the trauma. So that's what cults generally are. I saw that in the Seventh-day Adventist movement. I saw it in the Hare Krishna movement, right? As soon as you start to wake up to some of the things that are going on, wait, this ain't right. There's going to be a rescuer there. Oh, no. Oh, don't worry, Prabhu. They call each other Prabhu, which means master. Oh, don't worry, Prabhu. Everything's fine. He's just a spiritual master. You don't understand his ways. He's higher than you. Oh, yes. Let me surrender my common sense, right? There's a song by the band Inside Out. Zach de la Rocha from Rage Against the Machine. His first band was called Inside Out. It was a hardcore band from California. They have a song called No Spiritual Surrender. Woo, that's a good song. And when I understood that these gurus in the Hare Krishna movement were doing all these horrible things, I used to blast that song. Try to make you bow down, man. Right? It's like, no, spiritual surrender. Yeah, it's so good. So good. You guys should check that song out. Rage Against the Machine is awesome, obviously. But back to the topic at hand. We surrender to these gurus, these men, right? These people who have some kind of higher knowledge than us, and we, right? No. It's all about your relationship to God, Christ, the Bible. The Bible is your lifeline, right? And the Bible is the thing that is going to help you understand this world, spiritual things especially, and will have you not be deceived. It's your anchor. It's your bedrock. It's the light unto your feet. I mean, it's literally so much, okay? And of course, we don't worship the Bible. But it is necessary, and it will absolutely help you and save your life. It saved my life. It took me out of a cult. How did I get out of these cults? Was I, kidnapped? No, I was a grown man. My parents weren't sending anybody to kidnap me, okay? I read the Bible. I read the New Testament, actually, in 1 year, and it set me free instantly in a night. I said, oh my gosh, this is all nonsense. God showed me. He removed the veil. He said, you should show me. Like, this is all false. Okay? So, back to that idea about, and I just want to talk about some of the crazy things I went through in the Hare Krishna movement. I moved to a temple because I really started to believe in the movement. I read all their books. I watched some videos of Prabhupada when he was here in America. So he came from India when he was like 85-ish. He turned 86 on the boat. He had like 3 heart attacks, So they always, so I really loved this guy. I watched videos of him, and he was chanting in the streets of New York City, right? He comes to New York in 1965. He goes to the Lower East Side eventually, right? He starts in the Upper West Side. He gets robbed. He has these older ladies who are into, yoga and like that path, but he's not really getting the traction he wants. And then he moves downtown to the Lower East Side by the Bowery. And he starts preaching, giving classes in this little storefront place that he finds and gets, right? And then he starts chanting in Tompkins Square Park under a tree. And all these little hippie kids show up, and they just love him, and they just want to serve him. And boom, this is the start of the Hare Krishna movement. Right? It starts to grow and grow, and people start to come to the programs. And then he sends a couple out to LA. They started a temple out there, right? San Francisco, then the UK. Then they meet the Beatles, and boom, boom, boom. Okay. There's a lot more history and stuff that I can get into. I know I know a lot. Almost everything there is to know about the Hare Krishna movement, especially in the early days and stuff. Okay, so I started to watch these videos and really think this guy's he's the real deal. He's a saint. He's an enlightened being. He's giving me so much information. I love his books. I'm learning so much more than I ever did in the church, right? All the questions that the church couldn't answer those questions for me, he's giving me the answers. This is my thing, man. And I've been doing the practice, so I decided to move into the temple. Okay, now I'm in the temple. Before I moved in, I started to read some things about the gurus that were really concerning. Oh, I heard that they were doing this and that to the children, like you hear about in the other churches. Right? I don't want to say it because I don't want the algorithm to get upset, but you know what I'm talking about. SA, right? S abuse to children. I said, hey, I heard about this from the gurus, these guys that you guys worship. You know, what's up with that? And I almost didn't move into the temple. That was a red flag. I shouldn't have moved into the temple, right, in hindsight. But I was so thoroughly indoctrinated into the philosophy. I thought the philosophy was so true. I'm thinking, well, just some bad apples, right? And that's an excuse that the cult members always use. It's just a few bad apples. It's not everybody. Well, it doesn't have to be everybody, right? But you'll know a tree by its fruit. So you'll know about the movement by the fruit. And if people are doing that, you have to really question, what is this movement all about? Okay, so I asked them that. I said, hey, you know, I heard these things going on, the movement, and I was told by the Bhakta leader, who's the leader of the temple, oh, Prabhu, don't worry about that. His ways are higher than ours. We can't understand them. Okay, red flag number probably 20 at that point that I ignored because I was there for a higher purpose. Okay, this is the second reason I believe that people join cults. I think it's the main reason that I joined, for ideological reasons. Some people are just looking for answers. And the answers from the mainstream world are never enough. And that was me. I never felt satisfied with the answers that mainstream world would give me. Okay? So I thought I found the answers in the Hare Krishna movement. That's why I stayed. So much more to say, or I can say on this, guys, but maybe I'll just try to keep it succinct to these points that, you know, I realized that it was a cult, okay, by living with them in their temples. And I remember when they shaved my head on the basement floor, right, with a razor, like shorter than this, and gave me some robes to wear. And I thought, immediately my mind said, I've done it. I've gone and done it. I've joined a cult. Okay? The other thing I saw was when people would question certain things in the movement, the Bhakta leader would get in their face, stare them down. This guy was real creepy. He had a dead-eye sociopathic look. And he would never blink. And he would look at you with his non-blinking eyes. And he would either A, intimidate you, which I've seen him do to women even. You will not talk that way about people. Right? Big baby. Intimidating women. But I've also seen him do things where maybe the intimidation wasn't working or it wasn't the tactic he wanted to use with a certain person. He would use mind control. And I've seen it. And I experienced it. Mind control techniques are real. Okay? In Hare Krishna, they actually teach that it's a yogic practice. It's a mystic power that you get when you practice their religion. You get to be able to control people's minds. And you should use it for good, not for bad. Oh yeah, how's that working out for humanity? Right? So they use mind control techniques. There are many different ones, okay? One way they do that is sort of a trauma-based mind control process, which is don't give you food, overwork you, don't give you sleep, right? So you're in this really vulnerable state, and they kind of keep you consistently in that state. They don't allow you to rest enough, to eat enough, so that you're open to their suggestions, right? Post-hypnotic suggestions. This is a science, man. They actually do that in medical school as well. Medical school is a cult. Okay? You have to believe exactly as they believe, or else you're not part of the club. That's another aspect of a cult, right? You got to believe everything pretty much. And if you deviate on some of those things, well, you're not part of the group. You can get kicked out. Of course, they always shame you if you think about leaving. They put the fear in you, right? Oh, you're going to be fallen, you're going to die, you're going to this or that, right? Or they just shame the heck out of you. Oh, you're not good enough. You've left us. You're fallen. You're sinful. You're living in your sin. I am so glad, right? But for the grace of God, there go I. But for the blood of Jesus, man, I'd still be in one of those cults to the day I die. I would still be a Hare Krishna. I know it. I wasn't going to leave. I had no plans of leaving. Why would I leave? Yeah, I saw some red flags. It was weird. But this is my story, guys. I left that temple after 2 weeks. And I realized, okay, this is a cult. I'm out. Called my mother. She said, Mark, get out. Get out right now. Leave. Don't tell them. Because they'll try to convince you to stay with their mind control techniques. And, my mom knows how passionate I am about my beliefs. And so, sometimes you feel you should sit through the abuse or sit through the nonsense because the higher purpose, right? I believed that Hare Krishna was going to save the world. So that's why ideologically I was hooked to it. I saw a process that was going to save the world, and I'm an Aquarius, so that's part of my personality. We're dreamers, we're utopian thinking. And I've always been looking for the thing that will save the world. I've always wanted to save the world my whole life. Okay, ever since I was a kid, when I was in 5th grade, I used to collect money from people. Go classroom to classroom and collect change and dollars or whatever they could give. Hey, would you donate to animals? That was my thing back then. And also children, like abused children and abused animals. And those little cans that you see in like 7-Eleven. You would see like the abused children one and the animals, and you put the little coins in or the dollars. So I'd go around to my classmates, my peers. I would collect money, and I would donate the money into the 7-Eleven bottle. Who knows if it actually went to that? Hopefully it did, right? But this was me. I was always sort of an Aquarius, right? Like a utopian thinker. How can we save the world? Let's give. We need to help people, right? Maybe you could call it a bleeding heart liberal, possibly. I don't know. But when I became Hare Krishna, I became quite the opposite of a bleeding heart liberal. I became a staunch right-wing maniac. Okay, that took some time, but eventually we got there. All right, so I'm in this movement, and I leave. Okay, in the middle of the night, I just get a Greyhound. By the way, there was this Catholic woman who I met on the street while I was living in the temple. I preached to her about Krishna and meditation and yoga and vegetarianism and all the things that we believe. And I thought, I'm really getting to her. She's listening. She's not arguing. She listened to me patiently, kindly. And then right at the end, she said, do you ever feel like you're in a cult? And it stopped me dead in my tracks. And I said, yeah, actually, sometimes I do. Because I was feeling that very thing, right? I'd be with them, and they won't even allow you to go get pizza or go get outside food. You have to eat their food. And of course, there's no food, so you're starving. And you're looking at the pizza place across the street, but God forbid, now you're in Maya, now you're fallen, now you're in sin for just wanting some pizza across the street. And God forbid you like the music that was passing by in the car. Or you saw a beautiful girl that you thought, hey, she's pretty cute, maybe I'll go talk to her. Or you're just distracted by, oh, Maya, sin, oh no. Right? So, this woman, after I said, yeah, I do feel like I'm in a cult sometimes, she gave me her number, gave me her card. It was an older lady. And she's very sweet and kind and loving. She said, look, I'm a Christian. I think she was Catholic. If you ever need help, let me know. I will pick you up. You can stay. I think she maybe lived at the church or something, whatever it was. But she said, you can stay with me. If you ever need anything, you give me a call. The love of that woman, that Christian woman, touched me more. And in a sense, cut through all the nonsense of the cult, all the political ideology, religious, spiritual ideology, all the things I thought were so important. The love of the Christian cut through all of it. And in a sense, was more powerful than any of it. So that day that I got on the Greyhound bus, headed back to New York City, as soon as I sat down on the Greyhound by myself, I got a text from that beautiful, wonderful Christian woman. And she said, "How are you, Mark?" I hadn't texted her the whole time. And I said, "I'm doing okay. I'm on a Greyhound bus back home." She said, "Praise God." Amen, Amazing story. God has always protected us in the stories we've been, right? Guardian angels are looking after us. We all have those stories. Amazing, right? You may have had a story where you thought you met an angel. It talks about that. Make sure you're kind to everyone, because you may have entertained angels and you didn't even know it. That could have been that lady. She could have been an angel. I never spoke to her again. Many situations like that I've had. So I get out of there. I leave the cults, and I say, I'm done with Hare Krishna. That's a cult, right? And I almost kissed the ground of New York City when I saw the billboard signs, and right as I'm riding in from New Jersey and just seeing the big buildings and the lights, and I'm like, I'll never leave New York again, because I love New York. It's in my blood. I love it so much. And I was just going to do the 12-step path. I said, you know what? I'm done with this Hare Krishna stuff. But, I had heard of a group that was outside the mainstream of the Hare Krishna. They weren't part of the cult. They were doing their own thing. They were independent. And they understood that the Hare Krishna movement as a whole, the organization, was a cult. And it was messed up and it was fallen. And that's not the way it was supposed to be. They were the pure movement. Oh, I had to go. I had to at least visit and see what they had to say and meet these people, right? And they were over on Herald Square doing their Harinam, right, with their drums and their cymbals, chanting Hare Krishna on the street in New York City, which I always loved to do. That was my thing. And I go visit them, and I just said Hare Krishna, give them the prayer hands, bow to them. And this woman, Vrinda, who was from Brighton Beach, she bowed down to me. Like 3 of them bowed down to on the concrete right in front of me. Which, so you don't think it's weird, that's what the Hare Krishnas do. That's what we do to each other, for each other. That's what we're taught to do.